Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a public hearing. Tonight is Monday, February 23rd, 2009, and there are 4 petitions to be heard tonight, and we'll take them in order. The first petition that we're going to hear is going to be 141 Marginal Street, and that's going to be a continuance. Then the second one we'll hear will be Aaron Yates, 278 Central Street, care of Backyard Collaborative. And then for new business, the first petition that we'll hear on that is going to be 799 Princeton Boulevard, Bruce Bleschke. And then the last and final petition we're going to hear is the Hellenic Orthodox Church of Lowell. That's 398 Market Street. On tonight's agenda, there is an error. The first one says ZB 2006-47. That's administrative review of previously granted relief for 251 Mount Vernon Street. That is on for another date, so that won't be heard tonight. The next petition is ZB 2009, number 2, special permit telecommunications Bell Atlantic Mobile, 141 Marginal Street, and the request was for continuance to our next regularly scheduled hearing. Normally that would be March 9th, but the next meeting is going to be, I believe it's March
the 23rd, Mr.
23rd.
Chairman.
So I need a motion to continue that until March 23rd.
Motion to continue till March 23rd.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, roll call, Stephanie, please.
Continue?
Continue to March 23rd.
Continue to March 23rd.
Continue to March 23rd.
Continue to March 23rd.
Okay, the hearing for 141 Marginal Street has been continued to the next scheduled meeting, which is March 23rd. There'll be no further notice and no advertisement. Anybody wishing to speak or address the board regarding that hearing is welcome to attend that evening. Okay, the next petition we'll hear is ZB 2009, number 5, a special permit, Aaron Yates, care of Yates Realty Company, 278 Central Street. This is in a downtown mixed use. This matter was continued from our last hearing. The petitioner would just like to change the existing use of a boarding house to 12 residential units according to Article 12, Section 12.1 of the zone ordinance. Mr. Kinsella.
Good evening. I guess in the last hearing I presented the design to the board, and a couple of questions arose from previous meeting were regarding the required number of parking spaces and the distance from the building to the garage. Basically, I have given you, there's 2 documents. One is from Kathy Murphy to Bob Camacho, the building commissioner, basically stating that, as we have proposed, we're in compliance, to summarize the letter. The second document is a document we issued to Kathy Murphy and Bob Camacho. Basically, what we found is that we're required to have 1 space. Both the early garage and the lower locks garage are within the 1,500 prescribed under the code. The one thing that I noted under the Article 641, when it's 7 or more units, there's a section that says DMU, and that requires the 1 space, but if you read down, it says 2. There was some confusion on my part that Kathy clarified. The other item in the notes column in that same statute is a requirement to provide 2 spaces per curb cut. Now, our initial intention was to provide those spaces in the rear lot, but after talking with Historic, it appears that I will not have the room to provide that space in the rear lot because of the stair tower we're proposing to build. There to correct the means of egress within the building. So we're gonna request that Chuck Carney give us a total of 14 spaces in the garage. And off the record, the client wants to ask for more than 14 spaces from Mr. Carney, just so he has adequate parking.
It's not off the record anymore.
Yeah. Well, I figured it would sound good if...
So what you're looking for is to change a variance to change the existing use from a boarding house to 12 residential units. Is there anything else that you required from this board for relief?
No.
Okay.
just a special I'm here for a special permit, and the parking was the issue at the last hearing.
I'm sorry, special permit. So my notes from last time, we had a big problem with the parking because we didn't want you to have to come back and then redo everything.
Correct.
And it looks like from the zoning officer, you did clarify that, as you just said. And I think the oversight as to aesthetically what you're doing to the building is still going to be under the purview of the historic board?
Yes.
And where are you with that?
Probably in my fourth revision. We're looking at windows, specific windows. We're kicking around the massing for the stair tower in the rear. It seemed where we've landed is with a scheme that puts the stair half in and half out of the building. So it's going to basically sever the dimension, the width of the rear lot that's now paving area into two pieces. Not fully severed, but enough that I can't get two parking spaces back there for my curb cut.
Okay, so the special permit were granted, there'd be, the board has the authority to put any reasonable conditions on that. So I think what we normally do in cases like this is we would inquire of the applicant as to the construction schedule, what you plan on doing about debris control during the construction phase, and I think, you know, even some of the larger projects like Target and Lowe's, we did put some restrictions on that do protect the area during the construction phase. So if it's approved, how long do you think it will take to get final approvals through the historic board?
We're scheduled for March 9th, and I'm assuming that we'll probably get approved on March 9th, so less than a month.
And then you have the appeal period, so you probably would want
Correct, 20 days, I believe, is
right,
the
so
appeal period.
so say May 1st is a reasonable
Sure.
start date, and how long do you expect the construction to take?
A 6-month period for construction. We,
And-
just so the board knows, we've already pulled a demolition permit to remove the exterior siding off the building so we can uncover the hidden windows and any detailing that's buried.
What do you propose for control of the construction debris and the hours of renovations?
The work will be done during whatever the city ordinance is, usually 8 to 5.
Is that it? Do you know what that is, Bob, offhand?
That's approximate. I think they actually may be able to go a little bit longer than 5, but that's pretty close.
We'll follow city ordinance.
Right. And what about construction debris? I mean, I know you're in a tight spot there, so things falling off, blowing all over the place. I mean, it's just...
We can fence the lot, and I'm sure he's willing to do that, although on 3 sides is marginal space. The rear certainly will be where all the waste will be going out of the building, and that's the primary work area anyway.
Bob, are they required, is it necessary for us to put a condition on about that construction fencing, or is that something that the building department usually deals with?
That's automatic in the building code to protect the surrounding areas and public ways, yeah.
Okay.
That automatically is attached to the permit.
Okay. I don't want to put anything on that's unnecessary, so, okay. All right, is there anything else you'd like to say, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody here wishing to speak in support of this project? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. And I was here the last time also speaking in favor of this project. As I said the last time, this is a boon to the city. This will add to the tax base of the city. And I urge that the Zoning Board of Appeals, with whatever conditions you do deem necessary to put on this, approve this unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else wish to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Okay, hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition to this project? Anybody in opposition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed, and we'll open up to the board for discussion. Jack?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think the principal concerns that some of us had were the parking. They seem to have been addressed in both letters from counsel representing the petitioner, and then also in the letter from the commissioner. I also noted, and I was curious about the commercial use, the bar out front as far as the parking. It states because it's been in use for several years, it's grandfathered and does not require the parking, even though it's located in the B3 zone. Didn't require any parking for commercial uses. Those were some of my initial concerns. I think, that being said, with the chairman's recommendations for the special conditions, if the petitioner is amiable, acceptable to those conditions, I certainly would support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Bezza?
I do concur with my fellow board members, the facts that the petitioners have seek parking from Chuck Carney, the director of parking for the city. The 14 spaces has met the zoning law, and have spoke with Kathy Murphy from the inspectional office. The one thing is that I agree with the chairperson is that any approval has to be approved, or as well get approved, final approval by the historical board. I know that you indicated that you have a meeting on March 9th, so hopefully all go well. That you get final approvals and approval from here, and I know that working closely with the commissioner office, surely this project will should complete by the time set. So I do not, Mr. Chairman, if any condition would be the one condition pending final approval from the historical board, and the rest, I'm sure you leave it to commissioners to
Okay.
take care
I
of
think
it.
right now we're talking about for conditions possibly that you have 14 spots secured in one of the garages, and that you get final approval from the historic board. I think that's what we're dealing with right now. Okay. Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in agreement with my colleagues. 2 weeks ago, we had a small hurdle on this project regarding parking, but the good news is it is within 1,500 from a public parking facility. The downtown mixed use only requires 1 spot per dwelling, and I believe you reserved, so that would total 12 spots you would need for this project, correct? And you reserved
We need 14, and we have 42 reserved.
42 reserve, okay.
Yes.
Well, as far exceeds the number you need, so that's good news. And I know the parking in that garage is available at this time, so it would be nice to see that building clean up. I mean, it's a bit of an eyesore right now, but it's only temporary. And, but I did share the same concern as the chairman now, as far as the construction debris. Now, is the dumpster gonna go in the rear of the building, where that parking spot is? I think
Yes.
I think that's the best spot for it. Keep it, because it is a gateway coming into the city, and, during the construction process, let's try to keep it as tidy as possible. I know it's not always,
When we did the demolition of the exterior, we got details, we closed the sidewalks to give adequate space for the workers to strip the siding off. So that same approach will be taken when we're working on those exterior facades.
okay, excellent. Yeah, I think all in all, it's a great project. It's good for the city, it's good for the applicant, the businesses there, and I think it's a win-win for everybody. Good luck with it, and I do support the project. Thank you.
Okay, Rick?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, we need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before I make the motion, so we need, we're putting a condition on this that they need historic board approval,
Yep.
and,
That they have proper amount of parking secured in a private lot.
yeah, okay. Okay, Mr. Chairman, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following conditions: that the applicant receives permission from the historic board, approvals from the historic board to go forward with this project. And secondly, that they reserve as many as 14 parking spaces in the Jackson Street garage, reserved for the 14 dwelling units that will be there.
Okay, need a second.
Seconded.
Roll call, Stephanie, please.
Approve with conditions.
Approve the special permit with conditions.
Approve special permit with conditions.
Approve with condition.
Approve with conditions.
Okay, so you've been approved unanimously with conditions. Good luck in your project, sir. If you could just bring your plan to up here so you could sign it. Do you have a plan, the small plan that you showed us earlier?
Yes.
If you could sign it and hand it to Stephanie, unless that's a copy you need, just so we have that for the file, that's what we're approving.
Thank you on behalf of the Yates, which they were not able to come. Paul got sick at the last minute.
Thank you. Good luck. Dave, I think there's one right here. If you just want to sign that and date it and hand it to Stephanie. Just be careful, there's a wire on the ground there. Two conditions. Okay, there's two new hearings on for tonight. We'll take them in order. The first one is ZB 2009, number 6, a request for a variance from Bruce Bleschke. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. 799 Princeton Boulevard. This is in a single, suburban single-family district, and the petitioner would like to construct an addition without the required front yard setback according to Article 5, Section 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. Would somebody representing 799 Princeton Boulevard please address the board? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Helen Blaschke, and I do want to make one correction on what you said. It is not a single-family home. It is it's a two-family.
Well, no, I said it's located in a suburban single-family district.
Oh, right, okay,
Right.
I'm sorry.
Do you think it's located in a two-family district?
No.
I think you came before the board.
We came before the board exactly for that because we rebuilt from a three-family to a two.
Okay. So what would you like to tell us about what you are proposing?
Well, when we actually did that the last time, we did not realize that the land that ran alongside of the house was actually a paper road, and we needed to make a 20-foot frontage. And what we'd like to do now is to add a room on to that smaller apartment, and in order to do that, it would interfere with that offset for the frontage for that paper road.
So you're short on your frontage, is that what it is?
Right.
Okay, and what is the purpose for putting the addition on?
Just for extra room.
So it's a two-family now, and side by
Right.
side?
Yes. But
So-
one side is like an in-law apartment with 4 rooms, and the other is like a full-size house with 7 rooms.
Which side are you adding on to? The one with the...
To the smaller of the apartment.
And is this a family situation? Is it all family that lives there, or?
Yes.
Okay. And who is that?
We are in the process of my son will be moving into the bigger part with his 2 children and his wife, and my husband and I will move into the in-law apartment. But it's a little difficult going from 7 rooms down to 4.
Okay, now, we did get some feedback from, I believe, the planning board, something about the paper street and a buffer zone. What do you know about that, if anything?
We have asked on several occasions to buy that piece of land, and we've always been turned down because there's some sort of drainage on it. And I went and I spoke to when I came to find out exactly what I had to do for this, I went and talked to the city engineers, and they said that they didn't see it to be a problem the way the drainage was set up. But who said that there was a...
Well, I think we had some correspondence from the planning board, and they voted to take no action on it only because they thought it was a good buffer zone between the houses, is how I read it. Unless anybody else read something differently.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, they're saying that that street would be a good buffer between the 2 neighbors. They just didn't say anything about the street itself. If anybody went to develop it, then they would be only 2 feet off the Cashin Street.
Right, so it's a paper street, so that was my first question. So, Rick, as far as you know, there's no encroachment onto the paper street? It
Not at
doesn't
this
appear
time.
on the plans,
Not at this time. Looking at this plot plan, she is not encroaching on the paper street.
even with the proposed addition?
No, she'll be 2 feet off the side of the paper street.
Right. Right. And, ma'am, just again, what's going to be located within the proposed addition?
It'll be a single room, actually, it's going to be a library,
Okay.
a family room library thing. We can't get all of our books in to the,
And what are the proposed dimensions?
again, we hadn't set an actual plan for how much room we're going to have, because we weren't sure of where we were going to be able to build it, but it's going to be probably, I think it's 18 by 20 or 24.
I think that's what it says, yeah. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to tell the board?
No, just that I've lived there for 30 years, and my aunt owned the house for many years before that, and nothing has ever been built there. They've never used that road. Plus, at the very end of our property, or at the end of what the paper road is near, for our land, there's a housing project in back there. So I don't know, I know that the question has always been, what if they're going to open that road through to Middlesex Street? Well, they haven't done it in 60 years. I'm doubting that they're going to be taking all those houses to do anything.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? Anybody in opposition to this project? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. And we'll open up to the board for consideration. And Jack?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for my ignorance pertaining to the statement that Mr. Bienvenu alluded to on the motion taken by the planning board. I just need some clarity on one part of that decision. It says Cashman Street is a paper street and may be abandoned, therefore providing an adequate buffer. Now, again, I apologize for my ignorance, may be abandoned. If it isn't, what does that mean? Or am I interpreting that particular decision?
I think what happened, Jack, the best I can read it is as they normally do, they bring it up for discussion at the end of the meeting, and they really don't have the benefit of the plans that I know. Maybe they do, but I don't think they certainly don't have the benefit of a presentation, and they just look at it in general terms and point out possible issues. So that's the only reason I brought it up. I don't see it as an issue myself. It certainly does. My only concern was, does it encroach on the paper street, Cashin Street? And clearly it does not. It seems like it's within a couple of feet of that, but it doesn't encroach, and that was my only concern. If I agree with the applicant that they're probably not going to ever develop that street. It doesn't seem that it would make sense going by there, but if the proposal was obviously encroaching on that, there'd be a big problem, but it doesn't appear to be. I think they were just saying provide some sort of buffer, and I don't know that that's, something that is significant enough not to approve it, because I do think, based on the shape and topography of this proposal, that she does meet the requirements of a variance as to how her land is compared to everybody else's, so I'd be satisfied with it.
Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Vesna?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I do concur with you. The facts that the paper street, the proposed addition does not encroach in the paper street. If anything, the next door, the neighbors, if you look at the existing shade for the next door neighbors is clearly encroached. So the unlikelihood that the city will do anything to the paper street, in addition, the facts that the petitioners has at least 2 feet away from the paper street, it's certainly provide me enough, to support this petition. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Corey?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think we all have the same concerns. Being that Paper Street most likely will never be used for anything, but it is only 2 feet. I mean, if this does get approved, you are only 2 feet from that Paper Street, and that's awful close. But to your benefit, we have no correspondence from Planning and Development or the engineer's office, so it appears, the impression I get is the city has no intention on doing anything with this land, whether it be selling it or building on it or whatever. So I'm going to give you the benefit as the applicant and support this project. I was out there this afternoon. It's a well-maintained home, and looks like you've been there for years, and we'd like to keep you there. So I do support the project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Corey. And Rick, anything?
Again, through you, Mr. Chairman, it is a well-maintained home. You will be only 2 feet off that. The question I have is, if we were to give you the variance, would you be willing to go to the council to ask them to abandon that street? That way you would get an ability to purchase half of that street.
We have asked in the past to have that, we have asked, and so has our neighbor. We have both asked in the past to buy that, strip of land. And we've been told because of the drainage that's on that, we can use it. And we actually use it as just a yard, for our grandchildren and whatever. But we maintain it, as a grass area. And they said that we can do anything we want to that piece of land as long as we don't put anything permanent on it because of the drainage that's on that property.
Correct.
But if that's what we need to do, I would certainly go and...
You could ask them to abandon it, and you could also, in return, give them an easement for the drainage pipe on that property. And obviously, you can't build onto an easement. You can build up to an easement. And that would, obviously, they're never going to use it. You've been there 60-something years or whatever. They've owned it. Your family's owned it. That's what I'd be looking for. That way for definitely they would never put that road through there. I mean, obviously, if they haven't done anything in that long of a time, they won't be. So that could be a good idea for you to petition the council, see if they'd abandon it, and then you, in turn, say, we'll give that easement to maintain that pipe or the drainage on that property, and you could have a nice piece of property. It's just an idea. That's all.
But that would not stop us from going
No.
ahead with the project?
No.
Without, okay.
No, I
I
just
I
throwing it
think
out there.
he's just suggesting that might be a good thing for you to do. I don't see any reason why the city wouldn't go along with it, but I think it does require city council approval. So even though you're asking the city, I think you would have to file a petition with the city council to officially ask it, but you can talk to somebody else about that after this.
Okay.
It's not, we won't have it as a condition, right?
No, Mr. Chairman, it's just, you could do that, have the council ask for it to be abandoned. I'm sure they'd probably abandon it with an easement. And you could have the piece of property that belongs to you, just, now you have all your dimensions there. You'll never be 2 feet off a street, just in case. Because if you'd be 2 feet, that's pretty close.
You'll come back for another request for an addition.
I do this every 12
keep
years,
going.
whether I want to or not.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe there's any conditions on this.
Okay.
With that being said, I'll make a motion to approve.
Seconded.
Stephanie, roll call, please.
Approve?
Approve.
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 Okay, ma'am, you've been unanimously approved. If you could just come up and sign the plans right here and date it, and just hand it over to Stephanie, you're all set. Just both of those sheets, if you could. Just be careful stepping over there. There's a wire in your way. Okay, the final petition for this evening is ZB 2009, number 7. This is a request for a variance for Hellenic Orthodox Church of Lowell. The property address is 62, 62.1, 62.2, .3, 82, 88, 88.1, 88.2, 98, 98.1, and 108 Lewis Street, 398 Market Street, 103 and 105 Jefferson Street. This property is located in an urban multifamily district, and the petitioner is petitioned for the construction of a parking lot and open space for the Hellenic Orthodox Church of Lowell, and upon the removal of 2 existing buildings, to vary the minimum side yard requirements of Section 5.1 of the zoning code, to vary the number of required parking spaces of Section 6.1.4, to vary the area screening requirements of Section 6.1.8, and to vary the landscaped open space requirements of Section 6.1.9 for the parking areas, and also to vary the requirements of Section 5.1.1, Section 6, and Section 5.1.9 to reduce the lot size for the remaining structures after the lot division, to change or reduce the lot size and shape so that the yard requirements are met. Would a representative of Hellenic Orthodox Church please address the board?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dennis Crimmins. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and other members of the public here tonight. My name is Dennis Crimmins. I'm an attorney representing the applicants in this matter, one of whom is Hellenic Housing Trust. Another is the so-called Holy Trinity Church. Also, its formal name is the Hellenic Orthodox Church. With me tonight, I have my colleague Danielle Justo, another attorney representing the applicant. I have Fran Sagendorf, who's been an advisor and consultant to the applicants on this project, and also Jeff Cook from Cuoco and Cormier, who've been the engineers for the project. It might be helpful if I just took a few minutes and tried to set the stage by giving you a little bit of history here. This project has been in some state of development for approximately 14 years. At least 14 years ago, the Holy Trinity Church began planning for additional parking at their site on Lewis Street. The initial plans considered the possibility of closing Lewis Street, parking on all of Lewis Street, and expanding the parking significantly beyond what is being proposed today. Obviously, those plans have been scaled back. As recently, however, in 2005, the church, the Hellenic Housing Trust, and Lowell Housing Authority agreed that the Housing Authority would convey certain portions of their adjacent parcels to Hellenic to be ultimately used for parking for the church. That proposal, however, would result in the demolition of 2 buildings, buildings 27 and 30 of the adjacent North Common Village housing project, which at the time contained 18 units of housing. Obviously, the Housing Authority and others were reluctant to incur a loss of housing units. So the agreement was struck that the applicants, essentially the church and Hellenic Housing Trust, on behalf of, or others on behalf of them, would construct 18 units of new housing for the Lowell Housing Authority on Fletcher Street. That in and of itself was a very involved project, involved utility relocation, a great deal of other work on a very difficult site. But those units were constructed on Fletcher Street, and occupancy certificates for all 18 units were issued in September 2007, at which time the 18 Fletcher Street units were transferred to the Lowell Housing Authority, and buildings 27 and 30 of the North Common Village site were vacated. Those tenants were moved to, by and large, to the Fletcher Street units. As you can appreciate, the costs to build that new substitute housing were very substantial. Prior to coming to you with this application tonight, members of the development team, and I'm not taking credit for it myself because I'm relatively new to the team, but other members obtained all of the approvals required for the development of the Fletcher Street site. They also obtained approval of the Lowell Historic Board, the Massachusetts Historical Commission, the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the Planning Board for site plan review approval. Those approvals entailed thousands of hours of work, meetings, discussions, many agreements and approvals, all at significant cost, and in addition, the construction of 18 units of replacement housing. Hellenic Housing Trust, the church, and the Lowell Housing Authority have worked together to bring the proposal before you tonight to fruition. To address the specific variances requested, I'd ask you to keep in mind that while the applicants seek to vary the required number of parking space by one space, namely from 56 to 55 as proposed on the plans, as a result of the construction of this lot and related relocation of housing units, we believe the parking demands on Lewis Street will be substantially decreased. Where previously there existed 18 residences with their own demands for on-street parking, there will now be a parking facility, thus substantially improving the situation in the Lewis Street neighborhood. The proposal before you is to create a parking facility substantially shown on the site plan submitted with the application and on the board there, to Danielle's left and to your left. Numerous dimensional variances are needed because of the constraints of the existing site, the existing lot configuration, and the very specific requirements of the Lowell zoning ordinance with respect to parking lot design. In addition to the site plan, we are submitting to you this evening a copy of a plan entitled Title Source Exhibit Plan, excuse me, which I will ask, in a second, I'll ask Danielle to address some of the specifics on that. The plans before you, particularly the title, well, I'll ask Danielle to sort of walk you through the site so that you can understand with that plan, that plan there, a copy of which is in front of the various board members, or several copies are, you can understand the complexities of the site because it involves numerous small individual parcels, all derived from different sources of title. Some of them came from the Lowell Housing Authority, but some of their parcels came from various disparate places. Some of the land is registered, some is not registered, which creates a whole nother set of problems or complications vis-a-vis subdividing that land. So I'll ask Danielle just to give you a little bit of the background on the historical and the title.
Good evening. As you can see from the plan, these are the buildings. Dennis spoke of Building 30 and Building 27, which the tenants were relocated to the Fletcher Adams site, and these are the two buildings that are set to be demolished. They're grade. As part of the land exchange, the pink parcel continues to be owned by the church. This is where the church is located, and the city discontinued the Jefferson Street parcels, and to the center line over goes to the abutters. So those are colored appropriately. The yellow parcels, as part of the exchange, were conveyed by the Lowell Housing Authority to the Hellenic Housing Trust, and those are registered land. The blue parcels were conveyed by the Lowell Housing Authority to the Hellenic Housing Trust by the deed in 2007. There's also an easement granted to the Hellenic Housing Trust by the Lowell Housing Authority because these parcels in red would require to be subdivided because they're part of larger parcels, which would entail in the registered land parcels a land court process. And so at this time, there's an easement over these parcels to benefit the Hellenic Housing Trust. Just another point is that this parcel here in purple, easement parcel 2, is owned by the Hellenic Housing Trust by the deed. However, there's an easement granted back from the trust to the Lowell Housing Authority so that they can maintain these two buildings, which are buildings 31 and 28. And there's also an easement granted back to Lowell Housing Authority over this passageway so that they can maintain buildings 29 and 26. And the Hellenic Housing Trust is leasing the entire perimeter to the church.
Thank you, Danielle. As you can see, those plans demonstrate some of the constraints of the Lewis Street parcels and the parcels comprising the adjacent North Common Village housing project. We believe that those clearly relate to the shape of the land and those parcels. As Danielle has explained, some of the land is so-called registered land, the division of which is subject to the requirements of the land court, which further complicates the processes for the applicants. Those circumstances do not generally affect other land in the multifamily district. Numerous of the lots in question have been transferred by the Lowell Housing Authority to Hellenic Housing Trust. Other portions of the ultimate parking lot are still owned by the Housing Authority and may still be owned by the Housing Authority when all is complete, but will be subject to easements for the benefit of Hellenic Trust sufficient to permit the construction and maintenance of the parking lot that is proposed. Similarly, a small portion of the building a small portion of the lot on which Building 28, owned by the Housing Authority, is located, has been conveyed to Hellenic Housing Trust, as Danielle just described. Although a small portion of Building 28 sits on that parcel conveyed to the trust has granted the Lowell Housing Authority an easement to maintain the portion of its building remaining on that small parcel. I'm specifically referring to the parcels at the southerly end of the colored area, to your right on the plans in front of you that are labeled, the section labeled EP2. As you'll also note in the application, the applicants believe that the so-called Dover Amendment, which is Section 3 of Chapter 40A of the general laws, limits the city's ability to regulate the parking area and parking requirements. We acknowledge that the city can impose reasonable regulations, but we believe that those reasonable regulations are met by the proposed site plan before you. In addition, we believe that if necessary to the board's decision, the variances requested by the applicants meet the more rigid standards or requirements applicable to variances under Section 10 of Chapter 40A and under Section 11.2.3 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. As the members are aware, the ordinance in Chapter 40A of the general laws provide that variances can only be granted if the board finds that owing to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land, and especially affecting the land, but not generally affecting the zoning district, a literal enforcement of the ordinance would involve substantial hardship to the applicant. We believe those tests are met in this instance. We believe that we meet the requirement for circumstances relating to shape of the lots. The hardship is that the substantial conformance with the requirements of parking could not be met if we had to meet the literal requirements of the ordinance with respect to setbacks, trees every so many feet, or so many trees for every so many square feet of parking area, and the other dimensional variances which have been requested in the application. I'd also like to confirm on behalf of the applicant that notices of the public hearing were posted on the property not less than 14 days prior to tonight's public hearing. We would be happy to address questions from either the board members or others, and would welcome the opportunity to explain anything further that's requested.
Hey, thank you, Counsel. Before we open up to the public, does anybody have any questions of the applicant?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I guess the first question I would have is the council representing petitioner in receipt of the memorandum from the city engineer's office?
We received a memo in connection with the site plan review. I don't know if we've seen one for tonight's.
There are several items here, which I guess all I would ask, certainly it's a project worth supporting if it helps the church and the area as far as the parking. The only concerns I would have would be those issues raised by the city engineer's office, which I'm sure are acceptable to petitioner, but there are numerous: the driveway permit, wheelchair ramps.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask Jeff Cook, the engineer, to walk through that list
Sure.
with you. If it may be the same list as we got in connection with the site plan application, but if you have a copy of it, that might be helpful too.
Do we have another copy?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jeff Ryder. I'm an engineer with a firm of Cuco and Cormier with offices in Tewksbury and Nashua. And just, looking at this very briefly, yes, this is the same memo that we got from the engineer's office in response to our application for planning board site plan approval. We had no problems at all complying with all these.
Okay, have they been addressed, or this is something you
We're
just
in the process-
received?
We're in the process of
Thank you
dealing
very
with
much, I appreciate it.
So I guess if this is approved, Jack, we could just put a condition on that they meet all the requirements of the
Absolutely.
planning
Thank you,
board.
Mr. Chairman.
I saw a lot of those conditions on there, but I think they probably have to work through those. I guess, Council, one question I have is I'm looking for the exact request. Probably, it makes sense to take these votes one at a time when we get to that point, instead of just, I know I just had it open, but you're not just looking for one variance, you're looking for several.
Yes, sir. If I might, let me see, I had a draft. There's a request to vary side yard requirements, which we would seek on behalf of the trust and the Lowell Housing Authority, because when the dust all settles, regardless of where the quote lot lines end up, whether we're looking at fee ownership or easement rights, we know that virtually none of these parcels will meet the required setbacks. So we're proposing to build what's shown on the plan, but it is basically a general request that we be able to vary side yard requirements with respect to both the parcels owned and or in which the trust would have a leasehold an easement interest, and also those of the LHA. So that would be essentially our first variance request. The second is with respect to minimum parking requirements of section 6.1.4. That's the 55 versus 56 spaces. The third is the parking area screening requirements of section 6.1.8. We ask that those apply to the portion of the LHA parcel that may be owned by LHA but subject to the easement rights, as well as to the so-called trust parcel, or the Hellenic Housing Trust parcel. The fourth is a variance with respect to the parking area landscape open space requirements, which require 1 tree per 2,000 square feet of parking area. We don't have those. The trees aren't spaced exactly as that's proposed, but we think that there's been a very substantial commitment to trees, vegetation, and a substantial improvement of the site. So that's...
And is the plan, not to interrupt you, but is the planning board addressing those landscape issues in the parking lot?
Yes, sir, they have. Yes, they've reviewed this, and what's before you tonight essentially is what they have previously approved in terms of site plan approval, and as I understand, I believe they've also recommended approval of this, but they have looked at those issues. Fran Sagendorf is going to sit with people and go over the specific vegetation, trees, what kind of shrubs, that sort of thing, but they have seen the plan and they understand the detail that's in it. There is a further request for variances with respect to Note 6 under Section 5.1.1 for lot division without required setbacks. After the LHA transfers these, or has transferred these properties to the trust, it is likely that somewhere else on their site they will then not comply with the requirement, the setback requirements. So we believe that under the literal reading of the ordinance, that's required. Similarly, Section 5.1.9, we're asking for a variance to essentially kind of approve what the LHA is doing. They have a huge adjacent project that we're not trying to change anything except this specific area, but we just want them we're coming in, we're changing lot shape and size of the LHA, and technically, the way I read the ordinance, that requires a variance in this instance. So I don't
So
know if
it's-
that helped or illuminate things or made it
No,
more
I think
difficult.
I think it's good. Just to preserve the record properly, I think it makes more sense to take 6 separate votes on each variance request. That way, if there is an appeal, somebody doesn't appeal everything, it could just be a certain vote. I don't expect an appeal, but you never know. So that's what we'll do. We'll take the 6 votes after the public hearing is over. Is there anything else, sir, you'd like to say? We have read your package.
No, I'd be
proceed.
happy to answer any other questions, but
Okay, any other questions before I ask if the public would like to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I see we have a memorandum here from the Historic Board now. If I'm reading this clearly, did you receive approvals from the Historic Board on April 18th of 2008?
yes.
Okay, yeah, it seems like they have already issued a demolition permit, correct, on this?
That's
And-
correct.
And Mr. Chairman, for the record, this letter from Steve Stoll from the Historic Board does address all the concerns you had, lighting, landscaping, fencing, screening, and whatnot, too, that he will have to address.
Those have been addressed in the plans before you, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor, in support of this project, in favor? George?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is George Zaharoulas, and I have some knowledge of this project, being a parishioner from the church itself, and also as a past president. The council indicated he's been with it for roughly 14 years. I've lived it all my life. To me, there is a hardship. For example, this winter, that street could not be moved on. Our church was closed a couple of Sundays, only because there was no place to put a car. It's very important that the on-street parking also be granted. The way the church is set up, it has a couple of different venues. One is the bottom part of the church has a hall. This is where most of the elderly go on Tuesdays and some other days. The on-street parking, I think, would be very important to them because they don't have to walk the distance. There could be a service on the upper hall, the main part of the church. So it gives us a couple of different latitudes. But this project has been on the rolls, at least in our community, for 30 years that I know of, 20 to 30 years. One of the things that has to be taken into consideration is that when this thing was all put together, especially the Fletcher Street, Adams Street, and Suffolk Street area, the work that was done, the underground work that was done, as well as cleaning up the unsightly buildings that were on that site, especially, as most of you know, it's a gateway into the city. And with the restructuring of the courthouse and the roadways there, it becomes very important for I appeal. But that's okay. Let's go back to the church itself. I hope that you see in your wisdom to grant all the variances requested. It's very important for our community's survival. We're getting to be an older community. People are living longer. They have to have their cars off-street to attend services or to attend a function in the bottom hall. The plans that I've seen certainly lend themselves very well to the ecumenical plaza, where you have 2 historical churches in this acre area. And I think it behooves us as citizens of the city to take a good hard look at this project and say, gee, this isn't too bad. Maybe this is a beginning. And truly, I feel deep in my heart that this is a big beginning. And it's got to be a rebirth of our historical church, because Holy Trinity Church is one of the oldest Orthodox churches in the Americas for the Greek Orthodox faithful. And I implore you to take a good hard look at this. Take a good hard look at our church. It's a replica of St. Sophia in Constantinople, where our patriarchate is. It certainly is a gemstone for the city of Lowell. And by having this project go through, I feel that it's going to be even more enhancing and inviting to that area. The hard part about it is, by taking those buildings out of there, hopefully the security, now we've had several breaks in our church, and we've had people go into the church and damage the inside of the church. I hope you take a good hard look by taking some of this stuff out of there. It's open, it's going to have cameras, it's going to be secure. There won't be derelict cars on the side of the street where they have to be towed. I'm sure you must have seen the cars that were towed out on Lewis Street this past winter. I think it will eliminate part of that problem. So I want to commend the people, the presenters of this particular project. I think they have done an excellent job, and I hope you look favorably on all the variances as they are. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Mark?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. When this came before the planning board a few weeks ago, I did speak in favor of it, and I am speaking in favor of it today. I was on the Historic Commission, the predecessor to the Historic Board, back in the mid-'70s. So I'm very well aware that, as the previous speaker said, this has been talked about for 30 years. So I urge that the ZBA approve all 6 variances unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll open up to the board for consideration. Jack?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think you spoke eloquently on behalf of the petitioner and the neighbors. I think they're right on the money. I think it's going to do nothing but benefit the church, benefit the neighborhood. All that being said, and I certainly, the impression that I get from the petitioner is that they're certainly willing to comply with the engineer's request. And the only reason I brought it up, I wanted to make sure, A, they were aware of it, and B, that they have been addressed or are going to be addressed. All that being said, I think this is a great project for the city, and to retain the culture of the ethnicity of the area is important, and important, as was alluded to, for some of the elderly citizens. Anything that can accommodate it, make it easier for them to attend services, is also something that needs to be considered. All that being said, I wholeheartedly approve the project. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jack. And Vesna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the facts that the petitioner went before the historical board, got approval there, went before the planning board, got approval there, a lot of concerns that I was going to ask has been addressed by the petitioner at the historical board and at the planning board. And in addition, tonight, the civil engineering for the plans has indicated that they are willing, more than willing, to meet the concern of the city engineer. And given the facts that, some of the speakers, at least particularly George, spoke very eloquently in support of this petition, and not only that, but also first-hand knowledge of what's going on. In all that, I strongly believe that this is one of those projects that we as a board, should embrace and should support tonight. I'm prepared to do so tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Vesna. Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. I couldn't agree more with my colleagues on this one, Mr. Chairman. This is a great, great plan, one I haven't seen in a long time, one with community in mind. The church is not the only beneficiary of this project. Set on that. The city is, and the neighborhood is. and I know you need it. I attended a wedding there. A dear friend of myself and Mr. Goldman, who's here in the audience tonight, got married there back in the fall, and I think I parked near the Demoulas on Fletcher Street somewhere. And so I know you need it. The neighborhood needs it. And it's got it all, green space, the parking. And after seeing that color-coded chart of all the different parcels you had to acquire from different entities, my God, it had to have been years in the making. But what really stands out to me is the finished project, is what really is the kicker here to me. It's a wonderful project, it really is. It's got it all, and I commend all of you who were involved with this, and you have my blessings and support. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. And Rick?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, on the first one, the minimum side yard requirement of section 5.1 variance, we need a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve section 5.1 on the minimum side yard setbacks.
Seconded.
Roll call, please, Stephanie?
Approve.
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 Okay, you've been approved unanimously for the first variance, which is the minimum side yard requirements of section 5.1. The next variance is the minimum parking requirements of section 6.1.4 as stated in the application.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve section 6.1.4 on parking requirements.
Seconded.
Roll call, please, Stephanie?
Approve.
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 Okay, you've been approved unanimously for the minimum parking requirements variance request of section 6.1.4. The next one is the parking area screening requirements of variance request of section 6.1.8.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 6.1.8, screening, it has to do with parking?
Parking area screening
Park-
requirements.
Parking area screening requirements.
Seconded.
Roll call, please, Stephanie?
Approve.
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 You've been approved unanimously for the parking area screening requirements of section 6.1.8 of your variance request. The fourth one is a request for variance for parking area open space requirements of section 6.1.9.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 6.1.9 on landscape open space requirements.
Seconded.
Roll call, Stephanie, please.
Approve.
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 You've been unanimously approved for variance for the parking area open space requirements of section 6.1.9. The next is a request for variance of 5.1.1, note 6 of lot division without required setbacks as stated in the application.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Article 5.1.1, Note 6, lot division without the required setbacks.
Seconded.
Roll call, please, Stephanie.
Approve.
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 You've been approved unanimously for a variance of section 5.1.1, note 6 of a lot division without required setbacks as stated in the application. The final request of variance is variance of section 5.1.9 for changes in the lot shape and size.
Chairman, I'll make a move to approve Article 5.1.9 in reduction of lot.
Seconded.
Roll call, please, Stephanie.
Approve.
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 And your variance request for section 5.1.9 for changes in lot shape and size has been approved unanimously. All 6 petitions for variances have been approved unanimously. Good luck with your project. Thank you very much. You do have to sign package here and just sign and
Thank you very
date it and
much.
hand it to Stephanie. Thank you very much. Both those. I think the only thing that we need to just make note of is that we've canceled the next regularly scheduled meeting, which was scheduled for March 9th. Stephanie, is that right, again? And the next regularly scheduled meeting is going to be March 23rd, 2009.
You can sign anywhere.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, do we have any other remaining business?
No, there are no minutes to approve. There was no other business, Mr. Chairman. With that
Okay.
being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Let's get some heat.
Did you guys ever get heat in this room?